Hi, everybody, and welcome to this conversation of impact for kids. And today I am absolutely thrilled and honored to be joined by the Brothers Koren. So I'm going to read you their bio, and then we're going to jump into an amazing conversation about how music is so important to your soul and your development and your well-being in all ways. So this is who they are. So Thorald and Isaac Koren are on a mission to hear the world's song, one big voice at a time, with over 20 years of experience recording, teaching, empowering others through transformational leadership and touring the world as the Kin and the Brothers Koren. Their work continues to grow and expand the space for creative expression, leading people towards a more embodied life experience. Over the course of their musical careers as the Kin and the Brothers Koren, they are grateful to have experienced performing live on Conan, earning a gold record, and performing to over 1 million people while touring with Coldplay, Pink, Rod Stewart, and Bon Jovi. Now their mission has shifted to one that seeks to include many voices as they listen and study the transformative effect of music on human well-being. Oh, I'm so thrilled to have you here. Thank you so much for coming and having this conversation with me.
Such a pleasure.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we are a family that believes creativity is so important. And our experience as a family has been, it hasn't always been valued outside of our walls. And I really feel in the schools where I've experienced the lack of creativity, there's been a real effect on well-being. So that's why I love what you're doing, because we're great believers in that. And we are very clear on the fact that we don't have to be good at it to enjoy it. And I can assure you, I wouldn't inflict my voice on anybody but my children. But I love music, and we sing, we dance, we do all of the things, you know, that we need to be doing. And it's very uplifting for the soul. So how do you help people use creativity in their lives?
Fantastic. Well, a number of years ago, Isaac and I had this amazing moment where we realized what we were up to was not quite it. We actually had come out to LA on a break from touring. We'd been a touring band for many, many years. We followed our mother to New York City, and out of New York City started this band eventually it was called The Kin. And we were touring the world and living out our dream. And on a break from that, we had this gut feeling to come out to LA to write for others and help foster their voices to the forefront. And we thought it was in the music business. So we started that endeavor. And one particular day we looked across at each other and went, this isn't it. And the next morning we said, well, if it's not this, what is it? And we were haunted by this beautiful download, or this idea that struck us, talk about creativity. We had this shared idea. What if we became someone's brothers? And what if we helped spark their creativity? What if we help them turn inward and discover that everything they were looking for was within them? That what if we became their brothers to mine them for the songs that wanted to come from them? And what if, instead of trying to make them feel like, you know, this first time artist that they needed to learn a lot or get better first, what if we helped them fall back into curious love with themselves and actually find belief within them that they were equals with us as their creative partners? And so what if we went on multiple months experience to help them reinforce that in themselves, form a new relationship to their own experience?
And 6 years later, we've been incredibly fortunate enough to follow our feet one step at a time. And we've worked with over 150 different individuals as groups and individuals, and with different companies as well, and written thousands of songs. And what we've found in all of this is that, like you said, you know, the voice and our innate musicality is so key to our overall wellness, our overall health. By listening to music, we tap into, something that's been gifted to us, is this ability to, in the brain, understand sounds as what we call music. The brain has this innate musicality such that we can perceive these fundamental laws of the universe, such as the harmonic series, or, the major scale, is a certain kind of symmetry that exists in the chaos, if you like. And even chaos sounds great to us musically, And so here we are, born into this world without the need to go to school, for the ability to appreciate music. And also we lovingly argue with you that even you have a beautiful voice worth hearing. And especially, you know, in the voice, we call it, there's three main components that we've found in everyone's voice, three main pillars that we've found through all of these journeys, is that you are, in no particular order, you are a unique musical cosmology. And by that we mean no one has ever listened to music like you do. So, you know, you may share favorite songs with people, but if you really study your musical taste like a through line or a star map, you kind of belong to a specific part of the musical cosmos. And so we love studying people like that, because we've never found anyone remotely similar in that way. Second of all, you have this unique instrument, this whole body instrument. And, you know, your voice, as distinct as you know it to be, also sounds like no one else. And it comes from your whole self, an amplification of all the resonance that you are. And then lastly, you are this story. And I think that we get that you know that about yourself, and that we kind of find that a little bit more easy to understand. But we do find that most people find other people fascinating, and yet not so much themselves.
So when you bring those pieces together, to come back to answer your original question, when you fall back into love with those foundations that make you you, and this goes for you, and this goes for any child listening right now, or the inner child within us, that when we turn back inward and realize we're distinct, unique, and actually fascinating and one of a kind, beyond cliche, that is a radical creative act, to be into oneself enough to listen to what wants to come out of me, you know. And so what's really occurred is we've accidentally reinforced this disbelief in ourselves, and we've looked outside externally to say, am I good enough to sing? Am I good enough to write a song or create art, or should I go get a real job? And depending on the country you live in, this kind of pervasive narrative has happened over the last handfuls of generations. But the truth is, we're biologically deserving to be empowered with our voices and our creativity.
And what we find the biggest threat to our creativity, our creative selves, our freedom of expression, is comparison. And you know, you just look everywhere, and we are comparative beings. And so we're inviting people to explore themselves and their voice in a way that's incomparable.
To do it anyway.
And I love that, because I do feel we're born with these gifts. I'm not saying that we're born, not everyone's born with the magical, amazing voice, but we're born with a connection to these creative outlets. And, you know, 3 of my children are autistic, and so they haven't always communicated in what you would call a traditional way. But I've always been able to connect with them through music. And that has been such a huge, huge gift as a mother, because it just seems to transcend everything else, you know. And, you know, last night, for example, my 3-year-old, who's a firecracker, she was having a huge meltdown. She'd had enough, you know, it was too much, it was too hot, it was too everything. And I just was not able to calm her, and I wasn't getting through to her. And I thought, right, stop. And I just put some music on the J bar and pumped up the volume, and immediately she shifted, she got down, she started moving, she started dancing, she was happy. I was just like, thank God for music, because, you know, at that point she was just having this huge meltdown.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it.
When you were talking, my son, Julius, Jules is 6, and this morning the task was mine to prepare him for his school. And you know, he doesn't like to sit still and eat. And it's really, you know, just something, he calls it eat and run. And even the eat and run wasn't working. And so I put on Mozart, and I skipped past the ones I didn't want to hear, and found this, you know, a calming one. And it was like the Pied Piper, you know, something that has symmetry and relaxation, gives the brain dopamine and oxytocin and all of the kind of, you know, the good stuff in the brain that's there for us. Music accesses that stuff immediately. Especially if it's right, you know, certain music.
I found it as well, certainly for me, who's originally British, so stiff upper lip, don't cry in public, don't show your emotions, you know, all of that I've had to contend with and work through as an adult, is music for me has been a real bridge to my emotion. So if I'm feeling low, I can put a piece of music on and lift my spirits. If I'm feeling like I need to express something, I can tune into a piece of music, and it just like frees you of all the external barriers that you've put up, of possibly protection, whatever it is, and just gets right through to the core.
It absolutely is. And this is a global phenomenon. This is a human phenomenon. And looking at all the incredible research out there, we're still only at the tip of real understanding as to how music has such a profound effect on our beings, you know, as spirits and biology, you know, that combination, that music really hits us where we live. And some people are proclaimed music fanatics. They've always got music on. It's the soundtrack of their life is surrounded by music, including kids. And some people only experience music, you know, in a few places in their day or their weeks. However, there is a common denominator, which is when someone tunes back into the music that hit them when they're a kid or when they're a teenager, and they revisit those songs, and this is really the heart of musical cosmology to us, when they revisit and allow themselves to experience those songs, it's as if no time has passed, and that it's almost down to the same cells in their body come to life. And so music is really a language of profound impact for all of us. And it taps directly in to our vitality, and it also opens the doorways to our own creativity, even if we didn't write the songs, that music stimulates us.
Right. And I think this conversation has so far really centered in the receptivity to music, opening yourself up to music and feeling the benefits of being receptive to music and listening, like a new kind of listening. What we find is there's an other side when we express our innate and unique musicality, like our soul song, or however you want to call it. You know, because when someone knows who we are, they know us, and they also know our music. The only thing is that they can't hear it until you express it, unless they're us. And we generally can hear people's music, we find, and it's not something that we kind of can tell you why. It's just, I guess, because we've been around so many people as touring musicians, and we could always tell they'd always tell us what song they gravitated towards, and then we could kind of understand them that way. And so, you know, everyone is a walking song, and that's what we find. And you know, the reclamation of, no matter how bad they think they are as a singer, even the I can't singers, they do have a song, and that reclamation of them, like Thorald said, falling hopelessly in love with themselves through their voice again, that one is the biggest for
the first time, right? Because look at our education, you know, around empowerment around voice, and let's make a very clear distinction that we're so easily influenced to mirror or model our voice after what might look good and what might sound good and what might allow us to fit in. So even as a kid, you know, we're so inundated with messaging around fitting in, looking good, getting likes, fitting into this wild world, social media world. However, what we find is that our real satisfaction comes when we trust, you know, we actually believe in our own voice enough to share it. And so whether or not it's singing or whether or not it's speaking up, that's generally where it starts. And same with the music that we're really into. Sometimes we listen to music because it's cool, but there's real music that hits you where you live, and that might be cool music, and it also might be just music that hits you. So how can you give yourself space to just let yourself be into what it is you're into, and let yourself voice what wants to come forward, regardless of how it's received?
And we do find that a lot of people that don't like the sound of their own voice, and it's a good portion of people, you know, we're often told something as a child, you know, like, you know, and it could be simple. It could just be that, you know, you were making such a loud noise that the parents said, shut up, right? Or you're too much.
Yeah, quiet
or,
down.
You know, go to your room. Or it just, you know, as parents, it's so hard because the smallest things we say sometimes can have an impact. At least that's what we find in doing the work with hundreds of people, is that, you know, often it had to happen more than once, and it had to happen very emphatically, but it was so easy for them to be shut down. And we have 5 and 6 year old kids, and the noises they make are sometimes excruciating.
Right?
And because we do this work, we're
love all of it.
oversensitive, and like, we can't really,
Our kids are well expressed.
our kids run
I love
the roof.
that. I love
So,
that.
but I do want to say to the parents out there that, mark time when, mark your words and mark time, because, we actually call a big BS to the idea that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Because guess what? Every wound that we've really worked with people in have been word wounds, like the sword of a shutdown or a snide remark. And look, we come from Australia too, and the tall poppy syndrome's big. It's like, don't stick out too much. Yeah. Don't make a noise. Don't make a fuss. That's the big one in our family. Don't make a fuss, right? Well, why can't I make a fuss? I'm me, and I'm here, and I've got this amount of time to live. I'm going to make a bit of a fuss.
Yeah.
And that's, I love that. And that's what my ASD kids are doing. Like, they don't care. Like, if I need to express something, I'm going to express it. And it's really great actually observing them in the world, because it brings out something in people. And sometimes I've been out, and my daughter, particularly my youngest, she is very loud. Like, she's tiny, but she's fierce. Like, she's her spirit is far too big for her body. And we've been out, and we've had the sort of condemnation from other people who are looking, and I've just had to turn and say, that's how she expresses joy. Yeah. And when they've heard that explanation, they've actually softened. The irritation leaves them, and they go, oh, okay, so if I reframe this experience in the fact that she is being joyful, it becomes more tolerable, apparently.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Amazing teaching.
That's beautiful. And
so,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love what you talk about when you talk about your big and small voice, and I think that would really empower the audience. So can you explain a little bit more about that, please?
You took the words right out of my mouth. So, like Isaac said, when we walk through our lives, and this goes for any kid or teenager listening, as we walk through the years of our life, we all gather moments of inhibition that others accidentally said, or that we framed as inhibiting for ourselves, that we either made a decision to become inhibited, or we felt inhibited by another. Often people that we value and are close to. So often family, and often friends, and often teachers, and often places of importance. And every little moment we gather an inhibition, our big voice becomes really a fractured small voice, where in that moment we went through micro or moderate trauma around different messages that told us something about ourselves to hide or limit. And so what we've found over thousands, we've taken hundreds and hundreds of people along the songwriter's journey, which is like our flagship experience. However, we've taken thousands along voice experiences with us. And what we've found through thousands of people over the last decade is that there's specifically around 5 most common small voices. And these small voices, simply put, they live inside your mind and body as automatic, very impulsive, quick, negative leaning thoughts, feelings, sensations, and emotions that fire in our body and minds to remind us, maybe don't be all of yourself, because it didn't work out in the past. But what we're here to do is help people and reframe and re-educate people to actually embrace these small voices. So here's 5.
What are the 5? Okay. Yeah. So in no particular order, although the order actually, is important in some ways. But the first one that often stops people in the tracks before even starting to express themselves, is I'm not good enough. And, we've all talked about that I'm not enough and everything, but it really is real. In a comparative world, there is only one Adele, and that sucks for a lot of people because she's amazing. And wouldn't it be great to sound like that? But no, we sound like ourselves. And funny thing is, Dell's not good enough for herself. I've read articles, and she's not good enough either. So, here we are in the I'm not good enough, and it often stops us from even even giving it a go and grabbing the microphone. Okay.
It often gives way to the next voice.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be related, but another really insidious small voice that we find is common is, it's not perfect. I'm not perfect. And, you know, this is one of my favorites to play with, you know, as a behavioral coach, because what you'll find is if you look at people's lives, more often than not, perfectionists would rather accept an F than even dare get a C. But they would rather fail it entirely than risk getting anything less than an A or an A plus. So, you know, in theory, that sounds obviously unreasonable because there's plenty of happy people getting B's and C's. In fact, we argue that they're way more happy. In fact, so much of our work is re-empowering people to be at play and be a kindergartner again, okay with C and B, en route to becoming better and better and better, so to speak. So perfectionism is something we all have to go beyond, especially right now in societies. So that's number two.
Number three is I'm unsafe. And, you know, with predominantly women that we work with, you know, I'm sorry to say that, you know, people just don't feel safe. Women particularly don't feel safe in their body. And often the voice is like this calling of attention that can lead to harm, physical, emotional. And so the voice becomes this, you know, attractor, magnetic for harm, for danger. So I'm unsafe, it's not safe. And that can lead to a lot of anxiety around the voice. So every program that we create is a safe space. And that's a very important thing where, you know, we're not interested in feedback. Feedback is not important really when it comes to the creative process in particular, for the most part. So I'm unsafe, and then I'm not worthy. That one can be big, and often if we blame ourselves for something, or we have a low self-esteem, put others first, we're often not even worthy of having a voice.
Or if we feel bad or terrible for how, you know, something that occurred in the past, maybe we've found that quite a few people have cut themselves off from feeling empowered to allow themselves to shine, so to speak, or allow themselves to be voiced and to trust their creative ideas, right? To get behind themselves. So that's a big one for quite a few people. And last but not least, I'm
too much. And, you know, this is a good one in Australia, and the Commonwealth, perhaps,
definitely,
is that, you know, like, don't stick out, you know, fit in, do your bit, toe the line, and behave yourself, because you'll get a comeuppance. And, you know, we don't want you to be too big. Just be right in that Goldilocks zone of just right enough, just, you know, you can you try and perfect it, you know, that'll be good. But, you know, nothing too out of the box, too unexpected. And so, you know,
and so it's it's an expression of expression, really.
Yeah, it's a cultural phenomenon.
Because it's not about how great you are; it's about how you express how great you are. So it's sort of, at least in Australia, that there's been quite a big cultural small voice around "don't be too much." And if you're too much, what might it mean? But for another person, and we find this, I'm too much in America very much, that it might be caused by someone, you know, maybe you stepped up and you sang and it was big and bold, and your sister was jealous. So you dimmed down, thought, oh, well, that didn't work out. And so we often find that I'm too much voice gives birth to the rebel too, which is another take on it. But we see it quite prevalent everywhere we go, that quite a few people are afraid to sing out and write a song, because what if it's amazing? What might it mean to the people around them? So
particularly with singing, we get attached to this, I'm going to name it right here, the American Idol syndrome, which is like, if I do this, I might become famous and then my life will be destroyed, right? It's like they go down this crazy, it's like, no, you're just singing a song. All you're doing is singing a song. That's enough of a reason. You know, we don't actually need to kind of add the fame game to singing. You know, just because you want to sing doesn't mean you need to be famous. We all want to be celebrated. We all want to be seen and heard, as painful as it is. We all long to be to belong, to be seen, to be recognized, to be, oh my God, it's you. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for coming. You know, like we want that moment, even though it's painful, particularly because, you know, it's hard to allow that for yourself.
So those are the 5. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so listening to that, which is actually really powerful, if there are people listening today where the small voices have taken over, which they can at time, and that you know, can result in depression, it can result in illness, it can isolation, it, you know, the possibilities down that road are endless. So if there's somebody listening who are just being dominated by their small voices at the moment, what key things could they do, like today, to start unleashing their big voice and really getting in touch with their power again?
Thank you. We have a 3-step.
Well, before we even say that,
process.
I just want to say simply, they're not alone, right? I would say that firstly, it would be more common that they would find that they're not alone than the ones left behind. That most people are going through feeling inundated by their small voices on a daily basis. There is absolutely ways to be with them. And I first want to say, you know, for me as a young kid, I went through a very critical case of mental illness, obsessive compulsive disorder. And it really was centered around me accidentally giving away my power to the I'm not safe voice, which had me doing rituals. And, you know, obviously OCD is a mental illness experience. However, really, if you unpack OCD, I just kept accidentally trying to get rid of this small voice instead of embracing it. And so in our methodology around how to bring these small voices under your wing, we believe in embrace, not fix. And so much of culture around mental health and, you know, psychiatry and psychotherapy is really centered around, like, you know, talking it out and clearing it up. What we believe is that instead of trying to fix these small voices, we want to invite them in close to us. So what we're about to describe,
I want to share my small voice, since you got to lovingly share yours. You know, the I'm not good enough voice was, you know, it was birthed because I was never meant to be a singer, so to speak. I never meant to be a singer. I was meant to be a singer, but I never set out to do this. I was going to do something safe, something our father would approve of, and be, you know, a QC lawyer or something successful like that, something safe. And at 15, I heard a voice and said, "You will sing." And I took no notice of it other than to mention it to Thorald. And then 6 months later, my best friend Yaniv, sitting on the back of a ute in a party in Maroubra, Sydney. I can say all those words and you know what I mean. He looked at me, he was playing his guitar and he was playing this really cool jazz, bluesy thing. And he looked at me with these wild eyes and he said, "Sing for me, Zach." And I just started wailing the blues, you know, like, something, you know, and kids crowded around and he was like, "I didn't know you could sing." And I was like, "I can't sing," you know? And I was in the I can't sing. And something happened when I was just invited in a safe way. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, you know. And he was like, no, you're singing for my band. We got a gig in 2.5 weeks, you know. And, you know, I just kept following my intuition and this voice. And, you know, I think we all have a voice, even if we're the I can't singers. You know, we've all got a voice, our voice, and that small voice has never left my side. Okay, so when we were opening up for Pink at the Adelaide Arena, which was one of the highlights of our careers, waking up with the Adelaide bird song and knowing that we're going to play the arena that night, you know. So, you know, the night that night, like standing behind the curtain and that small voice, "I'm not good enough," is going off. And you have to kind of, you know, do these 3 steps because that's what we still do.
Yeah. So everyone just imagine standing at the Adelaide Arena about to go on to 20,000 people and you're hit with this feeling, "I'm not good enough," even though you're there. The first part is to, instead of trying to get rid of it or fix it, to name it and to actually be able to see it for what it is. So in that moment, it's, oh, I'm feeling the I'm not good enough voice. Like the not good enough small voice is here with me right now. It just triggered in my mind and my body, right? And when we can name it, we can, instead of believe it, we can hear it. So the next step is to just hear it, to hear it for what it is, a small voice, to be able to name it and to hear it. And then once we have it, we suddenly have some distance between us and that voice, right? Some separation, but it's less separation. It's more, we have objectivity. It's no longer we're subjected to the voice, but we can just see it for what it is.
We're not it, we have it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And last but not least, and this is the biggest step, and we wish this wasn't always so difficult, but it is. And just remember, you're not alone here. That if you can name it and see it, then can you now invite it under your wing and say, hey, small voice, be with me as I do this anyway. Be with me as I open my mouth and allow what wants to sound out of me to come out. And be with me when I have a creative idea, and when I go to share it, I'm going to share it anyway, even though you're telling me this might not be perfect, or I might be unsafe, or I might be unworthy. But once we can see and name that voice, can we invite it under our wing and do the very thing that made the small voice fire off in the first place?
Yeah, I love that. And it's really interesting, actually, because what you're saying is mirroring another conversation I had with Bill Bennett. I don't know whether you know him. He's a filmmaker here, and he's a Logie Award winner. He's amazing. And he's just done this whole series of interviews on fear. And he said, you know, what he's learned from the people, these experts on fear, is exactly what you've just said. You know, don't try and squash it. Don't try and run from it. Embrace it. Figure out what it's trying to tell you, and carry on with it, which I love so much, because I think a lot of the time we're trying to avoid anything that we perceive as negative, and we've labeled them positive, negative, right? I want all of this and I want none of that. And the problem is, it's there, it's part of us, everything's there for a reason.
Absolutely. Beautifully said.
Well said, yeah.
And, you know, what an incredible way to look at fear, you know, invited in for tea. And this goes for a kid as well, you know, that how to the best of our ability, can we be with our children? And if you're a kid listening, how can you, to the best of your ability, only as much as you can handle, can you invite it under your wing with you and say, I've got you. You know, I know that part of me is feeling scared, but maybe it's okay to be uncomfortable. Can we widen our ability to be uncomfortable? And a friend of ours, Dr. Joan Rosenberg, you know, in some of her work says it's only 90 seconds of discomfort usually. And so next time, this is another little thing that if anyone's listening wants to try, next time you get triggered or you're struck by these small voices, or you suddenly get a wave of anxiety, if you don't avoid it or try to fix it and you just allow it to be there, how long does it last? You know, do some tracking yourself, because it's often a lot less time than you think, provided that we don't try to run from it or fix it.
Yeah, beautiful. Look, that was such an empowering conversation, and I'm absolutely convinced that everybody listening is going to take away some actionable steps today to start empowering themselves. So I'm really so grateful to both of you. Thank you so much for carving time out of your very, very busy schedule to have this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
And you know, we wish the best for everyone listening, and may you step into that big voice, and if music and song calls you, let it out, find a pathway. And
share your story with us. We're at brotherskoren.com.
Yes, I will put all of your details next to the conversation so that people can reach out to you. And thank you everybody for listening, and I will speak to you next time.